Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Ask Huda. I'm your host, Jamil Rashid, and I'm happy to welcome back today Sheikh Muhammad Salah. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh, for being with us today.
Wa jazakum.
Okay, let's remind you of our telephone numbers. They should be coming on your screen as I speak. The country code is 202, then it's 38555, 248 or 249. Our email address is ask@huda.tv. Sheikh, I've got a question from Sister Aisha from the United Arab Emirates. She says, I'm a revert. I reverted some time ago. My mother is non-Muslim still. I want to go back to my home country and stay with my mother, but she is living with somebody now, a man who she's not married to. Am I allowed to go there and stay with them, Sheikh? She's asking.
Okay. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala nabiyhi wa mustafah Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. All praise due to Allah, we praise Him and we seek His help. Whomsoever Allah guides is the truly guided one, and whomsoever Allah leaves astray, no one can show him guidance. May the best peace and blessings be upon Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Of course, this person who's living with her mother illegitimately is not considered as a husband, and that's why he does not gain the quality of being a mahram. Because if her mother was already married to him, in this condition he would be a permanent mahram for the daughter. But since they're not married and they're living in an illegitimate relationship, then she has to be very careful whenever she visits, and she must put on the proper hijab carefully, because this man is totally stranger to her. This is number one as far as the ruling of how does she behave in his presence. Second, she should really work on advising her mother that in every religion, in every faith, that outside marriage relationship is considered as adultery. So that the mother, if she would like to live with this person, they should get married. And if they get married in this condition, she's lawfully living with him. And of course, also I wouldn't forget to remind you that to ask Allah to guide your mother and give her da'wah as much as you can. May Allah accept from all of us.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Okay, we've got a couple of questions from Brother Fasir from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. The first is regarding joining Maghrib Salah. He says, if I join a Maghrib Salah in the last rak'ah, so there's 3 rak'ahs, I join in the last one, how do I go about completing my Salah? Yes, Sheikh.
In fact, the issue of making up the missed rak'ahs within the same prayer if you join the jama'ah has two different schools of thoughts. The main two opinions, actually there are more than two, but the main two are one, which is opinion of Al-Jumhur, that whatever you join with the Imam is your first rak'ah. So if you join the second rak'ah or the third or the fourth with the Imam, that counts as your first. And once the Imam finishes his prayer, then you start resuming on your own. Accordingly, if you join the Imam in the last rak'ah of Salatul Maghrib, that's your first rak'ah, so you will recite Surah Al-Fatiha and another surah or a few verses, whatever time the Imam allows you, if he allows some time to recite. Then once the Imam makes taslim and finishes his prayer, you stand up for the second rak'ah, and that's your second rak'ah, meaning you will recite Surah Al-Fatiha, then another surah or a few verses. Then after you finish a sujood of the second rak'ah, you sit for tashahhud. This is the prayer which if you miss one rak'ah with the Imam, you end up praying tashahhud after every single rak'ah. So you will pray 3 tashahhuds and 3 rak'ahs. 1 tashahhud, 1 Durood Sharif to be recited after each rak'ah. So that's based on a hadith that the Prophet ﷺ has said, فَمَا أَدْرَكْتُمْ فَصَلُّوا وَمَا فَاتَكُمْ فَأَتِمُّوا. So meaning, and whatever you catch with the Imam in Jama'ah, join in. And whatever you missed, then after the Imam finishes, فَأَتِمُّوا means complete. So that means your first rak'ah with the Imam counts as your first rak'ah, regardless whether it's his first, second or third. Well, there is another narration, and that's why we have two different opinions. The other narration of the hadith which says, وَمَا فَاتَكُمْ فَقْضُوا, and whatever you missed, make it up. So this opinion based their view on this narration, yet the first opinion is much more authentic and its narration is much more sound. So the second opinion says that if you join the Imam in the second rak'ah, that is actually your second rak'ah. Then after the Imam finishes, will remain for you one rak'ah. That is your first rak'ah, which you did not join with the Imam and you missed, and you have to make it up by reciting Surah Al-Fatiha and another surah or a few verses afterward. As I said, I feel more comfortable due to the soundness and the authenticity of the hadith, which the first opinion rely on. That whatever you join with the Imam in any prayer counts as your first rak'ah, regardless which rak'ah is the Imam is on.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Okay, we have first call of the day, Sister Hadi from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Sister, you're live on Ask Huda. Your question, please.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I have two questions. The first one is regarding gelatin.
Okay.
I just heard from somewhere that even if it's written that it's halal gelatin, but it still has a percentage of haram content in it, like pork content or something. I'm not very sure where from I heard it, but I did hear that. Can we still take gelatin, like in the form of jelly or something? Please confirm that for me.
Okay.
And my second question is relating the commission that someone can take. Like my husband is working in a company, and if he promotes a product of another company to be used in his company, can he take a commission from them because he's helping them in the business without informing in the company he's working with, without informing those people he's working with? Can he take a commission from the other company of which the products he promotes?
Okay.
Thank you.
That's Sister Hadi there from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Next we have Sister Wafa from Egypt. Sister, you're live on Ask Huda. Your question, please.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
My question about delivering the knowledge from place to another place. Because since I've started watching Huda TV, I try to deliver the knowledge which I gain through it to my friends, my relatives. But what I'm really fear is showing off, because I don't know how can I be sure that I'm not showing off of what I do. So I think many times I think to abstain from delivering this knowledge and keep it to myself. Is this right or not? Wrong? Jazakumullahu khair.
Barakallahu fiki. Okay, that was Sister Wafa there from Egypt. Jazakallah khair for that question there, Sister. Okay, the second question from Brother Fasir from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Sheikh, is regarding the janaz of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He wants to know who led the salah in the janaz and how was it performed, Sheikh?
Actually, this is a very interesting question. We know that the Prophet ﷺ passed away on Monday, and for the whole day the companions were still living the shock that they couldn't believe that the Prophet ﷺ had passed away, until Abu Bakr Siddiq, may Allah be pleased with him, came and verified the news, and he calmed down Umar ibn Khattab and everybody else, and they acknowledged the fact that the Prophet ﷺ is dead. إنك ميت وإنهم ميتون وما محمد إلا رسول قد خلت من قبله الرسل فإن مات أو قتل انقلبتم على أعقابكم. This is the ayah which Abu Bakr recited upon Umar al-Khattab and the audience. Then they realized that that's true, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said Muhammad is not but a messenger, whom many messengers came before him. They died, and he will die. Whether if he dies or get killed, would you guys turn back on your heels? So, for the whole day of Monday and most of Tuesday, the following day, the companions were busy with this shock. Then, with electing the successor of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they finally came to an agreement of appointing Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu ta'ala anhu arda to be the first successor of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then they started figuring out how to wash the body of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and where to bury him and how to do that. So they decided to wash him while his clothes are on. They did not take off his clothes. This is a very unique incident, that Al-Abbas, the Prophet's uncle, and his sons Al-Fadl wa Qutham, and of course along with Ali ibn Abi Talib, the Prophet's cousin and his son-in-law, and Usama ibn Zayd, they participated in washing the body, the beloved, honorable body of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, thrice with water and sidr. This is a plant. Then they wrapped his body in 3 sheets of kafan or athwab. Then Abu Bakr as-Siddiq came to solve the problem concerning where to bury him. He said, I have heard Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam once said that whenever a prophet of Allah will die, he will be buried wherever he died, in the same spot. So there came Talha and he picked up the bed, and they dug the grave of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam beneath his bed, in the room of Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha wardaha, where he died. And this is the same place he was buried at until today, of course, which is included now within Al-Masjid al-Nabawi. As far as how did they pray? Well, they did not take his body out. So how the entire ummah would come and pray? As a matter of fact, there was no imam. No one led Salatul Janazah upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam at all. Rather, they used to come 10 by 10, enter his room 10 by 10, the entire ummah. It took them almost a whole day, because the Prophet ﷺ was buried on Wednesday. After his body was washed and they wrapped his body with the coffin. So it began by his close family members, then his tribe, then Al-Muhajirin, then Al-Ansar, then the children, then women, 10 by 10, 10 by 10, and finally they buried him sallallahu alaihi wasallam where he died, and his qabr was in the format of laht.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Okay, we had a question from Brother Sharif, and it actually carries on from the ayah that you narrated there, Sheikh. He says Isa ibn Maryam, Jesus, he says that we Muslims believe that he wasn't killed and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raised him, took him. He says this is a bit confusing, because the ayah you just said there was that all the prophets died before Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he says, okay, if they all died, isn't Isa dead?
Well, Isa alayhi salam, or Jesus the son of Mary, as we believe according to the Quranic explanation, that Isa alayhi salam wasn't killed nor was he crucified. وَمَا قَتَلُوهُ وَمَا صَلَبُوهُ وَلَكِنْ شُبِّهَ لَهُم. This is what the Quran says. Then in another ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, بَلْ رَفَعَهُ اللَّهُ إِلَيْهِ. Allah have raised him unto him. And Isa alayhi salam is in heaven. As far as the death of every living creature, not just human beings, that's a fact. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, كُلُّ مَنْ عَلَيْهَا فَانٍ. Everything that exists on earth shall perish. وَيَبْقَى أُنْلِي وَجْهُ رَبِّكَ ذُو الْجَلَالِ وَالْإِكْرَامِ. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will remain eternally. And He says Azza Jalla in another ayah, كُلُّ شَيْءٍ هَالِكٌ إِلَّا وَجْهَهُ. Meaning everything shall perish except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Including Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as I just stated, that he's dead. The difference is that Isa alayhi salam, when he shall come back afterward, he's not going to live eternally, because he's going to remain for some time and then he will die afterward. And by the way, he's not coming back with a new message and appointed as a new prophet. No, he's coming as a member of the ummah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's when he will descend at Al-Manarat al-Sharqiyah, the eastern minaret in Damascus, he will find the ummah already assembled and they were ready to pray behind a Muslim imam. So they will recognize him, and the imam will offer him to lead the prayer, and he will decline, indicating that he is a follower of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, not with a new message, not a leader, a new prophet. So that's a fact that Muslims have to be acknowledged with. Second, concerning the death of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, yes, he's dead, but he is in his grave, has a certain specific life in Hayat al-Barzakh that enables him to receive our invocations of as-salah wa taslim, then answer back, as the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said that whosoever sends the peace and salutation upon me, Allah will render the soul back to me so that I would answer him back. Somebody said, Ya Rasulullah, and how would you do that? وَقَدْ بَلِيت. And your body will be decayed and decomposed. So Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ حَرَّمَ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ أَن تَأْكُلَ أَجْسَادَ الْأَنْبِيَاءِ. Allah forbade the earth from devouring or decomposing the bodies of the prophets. And it is very interesting, as I just returned from the States, there is a new study, microbiological study concerning the microbes and the viruses which invade the bodies of the deceased so that they decay in a few days, that never touches the bodies of the martyrs. What about Al-Anbiya wal-Mursaleen? So we have to acknowledge that all the prophets are dead, but Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah gives him a specific life to answer as-salah wa taslim which is sent upon him. And no one is exempted from death but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Okay, we have Sister Khadija from the United States of America. Sister, you're live on Ask Huda. Your question, please.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Khadija. My question is about feeding your family halal food. I've heard recently that there are lots of haram ingredients included in the food, and I'm trying very hard to feed my family. However, it's so difficult because I was told that the natural flavors might contain alcohol. Like if I buy gum or if I buy candy or chocolate or cereal, it may have natural flavors. Therefore, I cannot call every company to find out about the alcohol status of the food that I want to purchase.
Sure.
And not all halal stores can actually tell you whether they're halal or haram. I'm trying very hard, and I hope the Sheikh can give us some advice on this issue.
Okay.
Also, my daughter, if she goes out to visit other people's kids, they may give her chips that has cheese, but it's not halal certified. And this cheese might have enzymes which are pork derivatives. What should I do? I cannot always tell, don't give her this, because they may think I'm so mean or something. So it's very difficult.
Okay.
Okay.
I hope the Sheikh can advise.
Inshallah.
Okay, Jazakallah, sister. Sister Khadija there from the United States of America. Next we have Brother Muhammad from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Brother, you're live and ask her your question, please.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Sheikh Salah and Brother Jamil, I have 3 questions.
Please carry on, brother.
First question of mine, that I have alhamdulillah married for the last 15 years, but no children so far. I have almost consulted so many doctors, but to no avail. So I just want to know what is the ruling of adoption in Islam, especially with the Hadith and of course Quran, and especially with the reference of Zayd bin Muhammad turning to Zayd bin Haris.
No. No.
And my second question, after supplicating very dearly to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the whole month and keeping a very good hope that this time my dua seems to be accepted, but it looks like that whenever she is down, my wife, and I feel that I've been neglected and not accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I just want to ask you, what is the best way to keep motivated even though like the dua is not accepted? My heart looks like that I am the one who is left behind and not been shown a mercy by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Okay, we understand, brother.
Inshallah. And we'll give this question a priority, inshallah, because of its importance.
And my third question, Dr. Sheikh Salah, for Salatul Witr, somebody has in fact told me that to experience more khushu and khudu, you can be able to supplicate in your own language. As I am from India, and my language is Urdu. I do not speak Arabic, but to the best of my knowing Arabic, I do supplicate in Arabic. But it is allowed in Salatul Witr to supplicate in the language Urdu.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. That's Brother Muhammad from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Now we have Brother Ahmed, also from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Brother, you're live on Ask Huda. Your question, please. Brother Ahmed, are you with us?
Yeah, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Sheikh, my question is regarding the bath given to the dead body. The priority is held by the spouse, or is it held by the men of his family who are close to him? Is my question clear, Sheikh?
Could you just repeat it, just again?
Okay.
The bath given to the dead body,
Yeah.
who holds the priority? Is it his spouse or the men around the dead body?
Okay.
My second question, Sheikh, in the previous episode, I asked 2 questions regarding wearing of clothes with pictures of animals.
That's just in front of me. It's coming, inshallah.
Okay, and the next one was about the practice of
MashaAllah, you have a good memory.
Okay, we've got them down here, Jazakallah khair.
Holding hands over the chest after getting up from ruku.
Yes,
I was
that's
waiting
also.
for the question since many episodes.
Yes, I do apologize, but it's
wearing t-shirts having animal symbols and all.
Okay, we've got those questions with us, Jazakallah khair.
Thank you.
Jazakallah khair, Brother Ahmed from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. We do have those questions, and they're right in front of me, so just be patient. We'll get straight through them. Okay, let's get to Brother Muhammad's questions from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Sheikh. If Salat time for Fajr is around about 4:30, and Ishraq, or should we say when it's dawn, is about 6 o'clock, what's the best time to pray this Salah? And the Salah I'm talking about, I think, is Duha.
If you're talking about Salatul Duha, its time begins 15 to 20 minutes after sunrise.
Okay.
Because it's still prohibited to pray at the time of sunrise. This is one of awqatul karaha. It is disliked to pray any unnecessary prayer. and required prayer. After sunrise, 15 minutes, you can start praying Salatul Duha. And its time is extended all the way until another 15 minutes before the sun moves away from its meridian, which is the time of Salatul Dhuhr.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Okay. Let's just tackle the question that we had here, Sheikh. Brother Muhammad from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, you said you want to give it some priority. So let's get to it. The brother's just asking about supplication. And let's tie it in with the first question too. He's been married for many years and he doesn't have any children and he's been trying for some time. So he wants to know about adoption. And with that, he's also asking about, he supplicates for a long time and relies upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But sometimes his heart feels like he's not been answered. How do we deal with this, Sheikh?
My dear brother, and everyone who's living in the same situation, I would like you first to be aware of the fact that we believe in 6 articles of faith. The 6th of them is أن تؤمن بالقدر خيره وشره, to believe in the divine decree and the preordainment, whether it appears to you as good or bad. Whatever Allah decrees for us is always good. Sometimes we pass our own judgment. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يَهَبُ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ إِنَاثًا وَيَهَبُ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ الذُّكُورَ أَوْ يُزَوِّجُهُمْ ذُكْرَانًا وَإِنَاثًا وَيَجْعَلُ مَنْ يَشَاءُ عَقِيمًا. It's all from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and whatever happened to you was never going to escape you, and whatever escaped you was never going to happen to you or befall you. So this fact and this belief has to settle firmly in our hearts. And you should always say, everyone under any circumstances, you should always say, it couldn't be better. You never know. وَعَسَى أَن تَكْرَهُ شَيْئًا وَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ. You may dislike something while it is good for you. It's for your own benefit. Not having a son, is it good for me? You never know. Al-Khidr, who went to teach Musa alayhi salam, he killed the boy. And Musa alayhi salam objected. He said, you killed an innocent boy. He said, you promised not to ask. Then later on he explained to him that this boy was going to be a wicked boy and he's going to be rude to Allah and to his parents, going to be a disbeliever. So when he killed him when he was too young and before the puberty age, he entered paradise, and his parents too, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rewarded them with heaven for their patience. Up to this level. So sometimes, not sometimes, always we're not aware of the fact behind the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala unless He explains it to us. So that should really gives you an assurance that whatever Allah decrees for you is best. And you should never say that you're left alone, you're being neglected, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not do that. If you examine every human being, he or she have some sort of tests and trials. Your test, you and your spouse came in not having children for 15 years. That's a test. Are you any better than Zakaria alayhi salam? Are you any better than Ibrahim alayhi salam? Prophet Ibrahim? Of course not. Zakaria alayhi salam kept praying when he saw Maryam receiving the food of the summer in the winter and vice versa. He said, where do you get this from? She said, oh, min indillah, it's all from Allah. Then if you need to ask, only ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَرْزُقُ مَنْ يَشَاءُ بِغَيْرِ حِسَابٍ. For Allah provides for whomever He wills without limit. هُنَالِكَ. Right? It seems like Zakaria alayhi salam was just waiting and letting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decide for him. هُنَالِكَ دَعَى زَكَرِيَّا رَبَّهُ. Right at this, when he was reminded by Maryam alayhi salam, he invoked Allah. رَبِّ هَبْ لِي مِن لَدُنْكَ ذُرِّيَّةً طَيِّبَةً إِنَّكَ سَمِيعُ الدُّعَاءِ. And this is a beautiful supplication. I highly recommend for you to frequently recite it. Also, do not forget the best mean of seeking provision, increasing your rizq, having children, and expanding your house, making it spacious, is al-istighfar, asking Allah for forgiveness. في Surah Nuh, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says on the tongue of Nuh alayhi salam that he said to his people, فَقُلْتُ اسْتَغْفِرُوا رَبَّكُمْ إِنَّهُ كَانَ غَفَّارًا يُرْسِلِ السَّمَاءَ عَلَيْكُمْ مِدْرَارًا وَيُمْدِدْكُمْ بِأَمْوَالٍ وَبَنِينَ وَيَجْعَلْ لَكُمْ جَنَّاتٍ وَيَجْعَلْ لَكُمْ أَنْهَارًا. The virtues of al-istighfar, not simply for a sin that you committed, but to increase your provision, to send down the rain in abundance, to provide you with wealth and with sons or children. So al-istighfar is an accepted mean of invoking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it is very, very effective. I don't have to share with you stories of people whom I know, but it is definitely very effective. So you and your wife increase making istighfar and never give up. Never say it's already too late. No. Keep asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness and giving it charity, and seek every possible mean of visiting the expert physicians and so on. As far as your comment on your dua, how come it's not been accepted? No, ya akhi, every dua that's coming out of the heart and the tongue of a believer is dealt with response. Definitely. There is only different mechanisms. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala deals with some du'as with an immediate response. And some prayers, He gives them a postponement. So the response comes later, because He wants to hear you invoking Him more and more and more. He likes to hear you. And the third way is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not deliver here. But all the dua which you have been invoking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with will be saved for you, deposited in your hasanat to benefit you in a greater day, on the day of judgment. So your dua, brothers and sisters, is never neglected, is never wasted. Also, another very important mean of encouraging your dua to be accepted is أَطِبْ مَطْعَمَكَ تَكُنْ مُسْتَجَابَ الدَّعْوَةِ. Make sure that your earning is lawful, and you feed yourself and your wife from lawful earning, because that's most likely to make your dua accepted and to deliver a response to it. As far as he also inquired about adoption, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala encouraged us to take care of the orphans. Not only if you don't have children, even if you do, so that you sponsor them, you treat them like your own until they grow up. That secures a seat for you in heaven next to the Prophet ﷺ. As the Prophet ﷺ has said, me and the person who sponsors an orphan in paradise like these two fingers, the middle and the index, indicating that they're very close. You will be next to the Prophet ﷺ in Al-Firdaus Al-A'la for sponsoring an orphan. But with the Islamic rules and regulations, when you sponsor an orphan, there is a great reward in that. Yet, you're not allowed to make him bear your last name or your name. أُدْعُوهُمْ لِآبَائِهِمْ. Name them after their real fathers, not you. So you're not allowed to make him bear your name. And the consequences of that means he is not related to you. He shall not inherit you, nor shall you inherit him or her. And you're not a mahram to him or to her. That means when this child reaches the puberty age, that your wife must put on the hijab before him. And the daughter, or the girl whom you adopted, if she reaches the puberty age, or an age at which she appears as a grown-up girl, then she must put the hijab before you. And you're not allowed anymore to give her a hug or a kiss. And the solution to all of that is to have either your wife, through a mechanism, give her of her own milk. That happens sometimes even without being pregnant. Or if you have a sister, she can breastfeed the child whom you adopted 5 times, 5 different times. And if you do that, she becomes related to you through suckling. So in this case, she will be unlawful for you to marry in the future, so you can deal with her as your own daughter and you have no problem with that. We can deal with this furthermore in details when we speak specifically about the rules and the etiquette of adopting a child in Islam and what's prohibited and what's allowed. Main thing that if you like to sponsor an orphan right now, there is a great reward in that, so I highly encourage you to do it. And not only because you don't have children, I encourage every Muslim to set aside a part of their salary to sponsor some orphans or an orphan. Not necessarily by bringing them home, but going to an orphanage and choosing a child, sponsoring this orphan's education, living, housing, clothing, everything, their medication and so on, that you feel that you're doing something really great, that on the day of judgment would secure you a seat next to the Prophet ﷺ in paradise.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Okay, before we take a short break, we have Sister Asiya from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Sister, you're live on Ask Huda. Your question, please.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh and Brother Jameel.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I and my family welcome Sheikh once again live
Thank
on
you so
Huda.
much.
Jazakallah khairan.
Thank you.
We feel as if a Sheikh has come to our house, our home.
Alhamdulillah.
I have one question. Some people suggest to recite Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's name at certain number of times. For example, Al-Hafiz for improving memory, Al-Razik for prosperity and job. In fact, for every Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's name,
No.
they say there is a benefit to recite so many times for a particular purpose.
Got it.
So, my question is this permissible? And what is the right way of reciting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala name? Shall we memorize them and can we recite any time?
Okay.
Jazakallah khair.
وجزاكم.
Okay.
Barakallahu
Jazakallah.
feek.
Sister Asya from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. An excellent question. Jazakallah khair. Okay, we're going to take a break and inshallah return in a couple of minutes. Stay with us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
The true life of the Muslim starts at death. If you wish to enhance your knowledge of the Islamic perspective on the hereafter, this life doesn't go on forever, but we do so little to prepare for it because most of us don't know what happens after this life ends. If you want to be amongst those who know, then join us every Saturday at 1930 GMT for the inevitable journey.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Ask Huda. Let me quickly remind you of our telephone numbers. The country code is 202, then it's 38555, 248 or 249. Sheikh, if I could just give you this question. Brother Zahir, he gave us a question from the SMS. He's asking the authenticity of the following hadith, that whoever recites Surah Al-Baqarah or Al-Imran will be shaded on the Day of Judgment. What's the meaning of this hadith he's asking, Sheikh?
Naam, as a matter of fact, this is a sound hadith. The hadith says that اقرأوا القرآن فإنه يأتي شفيعا لأصحابه يوم القيامة, meaning recite the Quran since it comes as an intercessor for those who recite it on the Day of Judgment. اقرأوا الزهراوين, recite the two surahs, beautiful, bright surahs, Al-Baqarah وآل عمران, since they come on the Day of the Judgment as كأنهما غمامتان أو غيايتان. They come as two clouds or two flocks to argue on behalf of the person who used to recite them, to shade the person who used to recite them on the Day of Judgment. So there is a great emphasis on reciting these two surahs, Surah Al-Baqarah or Surah Al-Imran, and the hadith is a sound hadith.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Sister Khadija from the United States asked a question about halal food. Now this is a problem that's not just in the States, anywhere in the West.
Yeah.
So many ingredients that may even say halal on them may contain some haram. And she says it's very difficult to go about and ascertain to every single ingredient, every single product. She said if her daughter goes out and gets some food from somebody, she may have difficulty. Even natural flavors sometimes contain alcohol. What's the solution? How do we get around this, Sheikh?
In the West, it's very easy to recognize the ingredients, not only the active and the inactive as well. So if you are used to buying certain flavors or condiments, then you should really examine the ingredients, because some ingredients contain, as the sister said, gelatin or alcohol. Even if it is a small percentage of alcohol, you're not allowed to use. Ice cream, they put alcohol in it for a reason or another. I don't understand why. So you don't have to pick up this ice cream. There are other different brands. As long as you knew. And there is a whole list that people in North America are aware of it. In books, in brochures, they distribute concerning certain foods and certain products which contain either alcohol or gelatin or any other prohibited things. Other condiments, such as nutmeg, for instance, is judged by the earlier scholars as prohibited because it turns a person intoxicant if he consumes a big amount of it. So accordingly, ما أسكر كثيره فقليله حرام. If a great amount of any substance, whether it's liquid, solid or powder, inhaled or consumed by any means, if it turns the person who consumes it to be intoxicated, then the small amount of it is prohibited as well. So anything would make the person drunk or intoxicated not just the alcohol, is prohibited. As far as the gelatin, we said before, it's not sufficient to rely on the letters which refer to kosher. Kosher food, that means it's lawful for the Jews to consume. That's gelatin, which is also taken from pork as well. But they say as long as it was boiled, and due to the concept of transformation, it becomes a totally different substance, so it's okay. And as a matter of fact, some fiqh councils adopted this opinion, and they said due to the al-istihala, where if whatever is haram, like if a mouse falls in the salt, or it becomes all salty, then it has been completely transformed. So it is lawful, it is not haram anymore. Yet, when we go to the chemist and we examine whether really the chemical structure of the remains of gelatin, in the gelatin, the remains of the pork bones are still the same or not, I said I personally made some research on that, and I figured out that they could still recognize that the contents of the pork is still there and could be recognized, their chemical structures. So Muslims should really avoid using that. And the alternative is there. It is very interesting, sister, that I understand that Muslims population in the States vary between 7 to 8 million Muslims. That outnumber the number of the Jews. That Muslims have to lobby to have their own food products. And just recently I visited the biggest halal meat slaughter and distributing house in the nation, in North America. It's huge. So alhamdulillah, shukla, Muslims are coming along to produce their own lawful products, and that should have been adopted way before that, to the point that they should really establish Muslim farms. Because, excuse me, we in fact worry a lot about the process of slaughtering and at-tazkiyah and at-tasmiyah, whether the person said Bismillah or not. And we forget a very important thing. What is before the slaughtering process? Not just the slaughtering process and what follows that, but what precedes it. What was the animal being fed? In most cases, they feed the animal with a certain food that's mixed with blood, hormones, and the remains of animals, including pork. So this animal in Islamic fiqh is considered as jallala. It eats dirt, similar to pigs. And we cannot just pick up this animal and slaughter it and eat its meat. Depending on the size of the animal and the type of the animal, it has to be restrained for some time, fed from regular lawful food, because the unlawful food which they eat is transferred to us as well. So we should really make sure that Muslims have their own farms, and there is nothing wrong with that, and it will become very, very healthy. You see, brothers and sisters, when people start playing games with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and oppose His divine law and doctrine, this is what happens. We get mad cow disease, we get avian flu, we get this and this and that. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said في سورة طه وَمَنْ أَعْرَضَ عَنْ ذِكْرِ فَإِنَّ لَهُ مَعِيشَةً ضَنْكَ. And whosoever turns away from my dhikr, from my guidance, from the Quran, from my reminder, then we're going to make his life miserable. And this is exactly what's happening. These diseases concerning animals we've never heard of before. It takes the life of millions of cattle and heads. We lose that. It's a big loss. And meanwhile, it hurts us. It increases the possibility of having malignant tumors, in addition to an endless series of ailments and diseases. So, as a Muslim living in the West, it chose to live in the West for a reason or another, in a Muslim society, in a non-Muslim society, and also those who are in charge for importing meat products, medications produced by non-Muslim societies must make sure that the ingredients or the contents do not have anything that is haram. Especially this is something that we consume, because the Prophet ﷺ says that if we eat anything from haram, one's deed will not be accepted for 40 days. And every body that grows out of haram, and nar is more worthy of this flesh and that body. So we have to make an effort. And I understand that there are some scientists and Muslim chemists and physicians who are very dedicated to that. They create lists of products to warn the Muslims in the Islamic centers. You just need to look for it on online or search with the ISNA or ISGH or any of these organizations in the US, you will be able to figure out these products, whether they are lawful to use or not.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Okay, Brother Nazir from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Brother, you're live on Ask Huda. Your question, please. Brother Nazir, are you with us? Brother Nazir, are you there? Okay, I think we've lost Brother Nazir there. Okay, Sheikh, if we could get to this question from Brother Ahmed from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Like he said, he's been waiting some time for it. Okay, pictures of animals, okay, on clothing. Can you wear this kind of clothing while you're praying, Sheikh?
We said the Prophet ﷺ was praying once, and he noticed in his salah, he was praying towards a curtain. Not just wearing, he was praying towards a curtain that has a picture of a bird.
Mm-hmm.
Once he finished the salah, he was angry and he said to Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha ardaha to tear it apart and to put it as a liner for a cushion. So they step on it and they use it as a cushion. And he said, it distracted my attention in the salah. Whether in the salah or outside the salah, a person is not supposed to wear clothes which have pictures of live things, such as animals or humans. So in the salah, it becomes more restricted, of course.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Okay, the second question from the brother. It's an old question. We've had it before, and it's still, very confusing to some people, because when you go to salah, you see people doing different actions. So the brother says, when you come out of ruku, some people put their hands back on their chest, some put them on their side. Which way to follow? What's the sunnah on this, Sheikh?
Al-Jumhur, and that term I'm sure now the viewers are fully aware of its meaning, which means the vast majority of the Muslim jurists are of the opinion that once you rise up from ruku', you let go your hands. Because those who narrated the Prophet's prayer, as we explained in our lengthy program, the Prophet's prayer, did not narrate at all that the Prophet ﷺ used to place his hands on his chest after rising up from ruku'. And some of the scholars said, no. The narration says that while he was standing, he used to put his hands on his chest, so he should put his hands on his chest. I personally adopt the first view, which is letting go your hands after rising up from ruku', and Allah knows best.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Okay, we can go to the question of Sister Halima from Nigeria, Sheikh. Sujood in Tilawah. Now, if you hear somebody recite the Quran and it comes to the point for sujood in this, the several points in the Quran, places in the Quran, what do you do? Do you make that sujood? Is it wajib for you to do that, Sheikh?
I do believe this question is very important, and I have to give some elaboration on its answer, because I have seen people making sujood in the vehicle when they play the CD or the MP3 or the radio, and they hear ayah which has sajda, so they make sujood or they stop to make sujood, and so on. Number one, sujood tilawa is sunnah. It is neither a wajib nor a fard, meaning if somebody did not do it, is not committing a sin. It's highly recommended to do it, of course, and there are 15 positions in the Quran distributed in various surahs. In one surah of whom it has 2 positions, which is Surah Al-Hajj. Whenever a Muslim recites them, should make sujood tilawa. And the Prophet ﷺ was heard saying in his sujood, besides Subhana Rabbiyal A'la, O Allah, Allahumma aktub li biha ajra, wahtut anni biha wizra, waj'alha li indaka zukhra. Oh Allah, give me a reward for this sajjah and remove one of my sins because of it, and raise and save it for me as an asset towards my good deeds, the balance of my good deeds on the Day of Judgment. Well, what if somebody was not reciting himself, but he heard somebody was reciting? Well, if the reciter himself did sujood tilawa, then we should follow him and we make sujood tilawa. But if you hear it from a radio, a television, or while walking somewhere, and you haven't seen the reciter making sujood at tilawa, then you don't have to. It is not prescribed to do sujood tilawa. Same thing, if the person was reciting in front of you and he skipped it, because somebody was reciting before the Prophet ﷺ did not do sujood tilawa, and the Prophet ﷺ accordingly did not do it, because the person who's reciting will be in the lead. So if he does it, we do it. If he doesn't, he is not committing a sin. He just skipped a great word because it's highly recommended, and it does not affect his salah if it was in the salah itself.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Okay, we've got a call from Sister Hadiya from Algeria. Sister, you're live on Ask Huda. Your question, please.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I want to ask, what should I do when I'm seeing my husband is going farther away from his deen? He's not praying in the masjid anymore, just the Jummah. He prays his prayers late, and he's arrogant, and I just want some advice on what I should do to try to help him.
Okay, Sister, Jazakallah khair for that question. Sister Hadiya from Algeria, Jazakallah khair, Sister, for that question. We'll try to get to that. Okay, Brother Muhammad from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Sheikh, asked a question. Now, it may sound strange to us, but for some people in their cultures, things are much more different. He says, a very simple question, can a woman cut her hair? I mean, this is the question he says, is she allowed to cut her hair? And I think he really wants to know what's the limits on this, really.
Okay, yes, a woman may cut her hair, but not to the point that it will be very short, looks like a man. Because the Prophet ﷺ cursed those who, of women, act like men, or of men who act like women, or dress like the opposite gender, or behave like them. And also, it is restricted to cut it in a fashion that resembles one of the women who are rebellious, a singer, an actress, or a disbeliever. So you do it because you want to do it. If there is some hairstyle that you want to do it for your husband, that's perfectly fine, no problem with that. But to do it to copy somebody who is wicked or rebellious, or to shorten it very short to look like a man, that is of course restricted.
Jazakallah khair. Okay, the last question from the brother is regarding his salah. He's at home praying a salah. He said a fard salah he was praying. He was looking after his daughter, but she wasn't near him. Something happened, he heard a noise, he feared for his daughter, so he broke his salah and fetched his daughter. He says, what do I do in this situation? How do I go about making it up? Is it something bad he's done, he's asking?
Salatul Fard, the 5 daily prayers, is very sacred. Each salah is very sacred. So once you enter the salah by making takbiratul ihram, you cannot just leave on your own without a very legitimate reason, such as figuring out that you lost your wudu, or you did not have wudu, or due to a necessity, an emergency, when you saw somebody who was about to fall in a pit, or drown, or a blind who was going to cross the road and a car would hit him, or your daughter is reaching the window and she could fall. All these emergencies are valid reasons to make the person, and rather than do that, there could be a great disaster. So in this condition, it is permissible for him to exit and leave Salatul Fard.
Jazakallah khair. Okay, at the beginning of this episode, Sheikh, we had Sister Hadi from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Now, she's talking about the issue that we're speaking about, gelatin. A product that says halal and it contains gelatin. Maybe this still has some elements of pork and so. Could you just explain what gelatin is and how it's formulated so we get an understanding?
If you buy a product which says halal, then you're not responsible for the verification, nor are you responsible if it contained anything which is not halal. It's verified in front of you as halal. Khalas. You're not responsible. As long as it is distributed legally and imported, whether it was imported or produced in the same country, so those who did are responsible for that. And the only halal way in producing gelatin is to exclude the pork source, to make it only from beef or sheep or goats, but pork to be excluded completely.
Jazakallah khair. Okay, just the last question here, Sheikh. See if we can sneak it in. Okay, the sister's asking about her husband. He works for a particular company. He sells sometimes products from another company, an outside company, to his own company. He says sometimes he receives a commission from this outside company. His own company does not know about this. Is he allowed to take this commission?
You see, I'm afraid because we're running out of time, this question needs really a lot of elaboration on its answer. But quickly, inshallah, next time you can remind me to explain in details. As long as the company which you're working for is not aware of that, and you're afraid that if they figure out you could be in trouble, then this is haram. And this is some sort of rishwa, bribery. But we'll explain inshallah in details concerning that next episode.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh, for all your answers today. Okay, well that's all the time we have for you today on Ask Huda. Please do send your emails to ask@huda.tv. Well, until next time, I'll leave you with Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh.